Commander Jasper Reed stood at the observation deck of the Earth Alliance flagship Celestial Dawn, watching the approaching Asterian vessel with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The alien ship's crystalline structure caught the light of the nearby star, creating a mesmerizing display of colors that danced across its surface. After 15 years of military service and 5 as a diplomat, he thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. Quite the sight, isn't it? Captain Diana Foster's voice broke through his reverie. Our first official diplomatic meeting with the Asterians, and they send their most prestigious ambassador. Jasper straightened his formal uniform, the deep blue material highlighting his broad shoulders. Any intel on this ambassador Neria? Only that she's considered one of their most brilliant minds, Diana replied, her dark eyes twinkling with amusement. And apparently, she specifically requested you as her diplomatic liaison. Before Jasper could respond, the ship's AI announced the Asterian delegation's arrival. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a sight that made his breath catch. Ambassador Neria stood tall and elegant, her silvery skin seeming to shimmer with an inner light. Her eyes, a deep violet with flecks of starlight, met his with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Commander Reed, she spoke, her voice carrying a musical quality that the universal translators couldn't quite filter out. I've heard much about your diplomatic achievements. Jasper bowed slightly, following the protocol briefings. Ambassador Neria, welcome aboard the Celestial Dawn. Though I must admit, I'm curious about your specific request for my assignment. A smile played at the corners of her iridescent lips. Direct and honest. Your reputation proves accurate. She stepped closer, and Jasper caught the subtle scent of something like starflowers. My people believe in the importance of compatible energies when conducting diplomatic relations. The way she said compatible sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. Diana coughed discreetly beside him, reminding him of their audience. Perhaps we should proceed to the conference room to discuss the terms of our potential alliance. As they walked through the corridors, Jasper couldn't help but notice how Neria's movements seemed to flow like liquid silver. Her formal attire, a form-fitting suit that appeared to be made of living crystal, caught the light with every step. The other members of her delegation followed at a respectful distance, their expressions unreadable. In the conference room, Neria took her seat directly across from Jasper. Commander, are you aware of why the Asterian Council chose this particular moment to initiate formal relations with Earth? The official documentation mentioned technological exchange and cultural understanding, Jasper replied, studying her expression carefully. Neria leaned forward, her violet eyes seeming to peer into his soul. Those are diplomatic pleasantries. The truth is more personal. She placed a datapad on the table, displaying a complex series of genetic markers. Our scientists have discovered something fascinating about human DNA. Jasper's eyes widened as he examined the data. These patterns, they're almost identical to Asterian genetic sequences. More than almost, Neria confirmed, her voice dropping to an intimate tone that made the other delegates shift uncomfortably. Our species are remarkably compatible, Commander. In ways that could ensure the survival of my people. The implications hit him like a gravitational wave. You're saying. My people are facing a crisis, she continued, her composed facade cracking slightly to reveal genuine concern. Each generation, fewer children are born. We've discovered that human genetic material could potentially stabilize our declining population. But more than that. She paused, her eyes meeting his with startling directness. We believe that certain humans possess particularly strong compatibility with our species. Jasper felt the weight of her gaze. And I'm one of them. The strongest match we've ever found, she confirmed, a slight flush coloring her silvery cheeks. Which is why I insisted on meeting you personally. These negotiations aren't just about trade agreements or cultural exchange, Commander Reed. They're about the future of two species. The room suddenly felt several degrees warmer. Diana, ever observant, began ushering the other delegates out under the pretense of giving them a tour, leaving Jasper alone with Neria. "I appreciate your honesty," he said carefully, "but this seems rather intimate for a first diplomatic meeting." Neria rose gracefully, moving to stand by the viewport. "My people don't believe in wasting time with artificial formalities when the universe presents us with clear signs." She turned to face him, starlight playing across her features. "Tell me, Commander, do you feel it? The resonance between us?" Jasper couldn't deny the electric tension in the air, the way his body seemed to hum with awareness in her presence. It was more than physical attraction, there was something almost magnetic drawing them together. "I do," he admitted, joining her at the viewport. "But this is more complicated than just you and me. We're talking about the future of entire civilizations." "Yes," she agreed, her hand brushing against his with deliberate slowness. "And isn't that exactly why we should explore this connection? To understand what it could mean for both our peoples." As their fingers intertwined, Jasper felt a spark of energy pass between them. Neria gasped softly, her violet eyes widening. The compatibility readings didn't do justice to the actual sensation, she whispered. "This could change everything," Jasper said, equally affected by their touch. "Diplomatic relations, interspecies politics." "Or perhaps," Neria suggested, her voice carrying a note of hope, "it could be exactly what both our species need to move forward together." She stepped closer, the scent of starflowers enveloping him. "The question is, Commander Reed, are you willing to explore these possibilities with me?" Looking into her starlit eyes, Jasper knew his answer would change the course of not just his life, but potentially the future of humanitarian relations forever. The weight of that responsibility should have terrified him. Instead, he felt only excitement and a deep sense of rightness, as if every step of his career had been leading to this moment. The following weeks aboard the Celestial Dawn blurred together in a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings and stolen moments. Jasper found himself spending increasingly long hours with Neria, ostensibly discussing treaty details but often drifting into more personal territory. Today, they sat in the ship's botanical garden, a compromise between formal meeting spaces and complete privacy. "Your earth plants are fascinating," Neria mused, reaching out to touch a rose petal with delicate fingers. "So vibrant, yet so brief in their existence. Much like humans themselves." Jasper watched her expression carefully. "And how long do Asterians typically live?" 3 centuries, give or take a few decades," she replied, turning to face him. "Does that trouble you?" He considered her question seriously. "It should, shouldn't it? But somehow, it doesn't. I'm more concerned about the pressure your council is putting on us." The latest transmissions from the Asterian High Council had been increasingly pointed about accelerating the compatibility testing phase of their diplomatic relations. Neria's own mother, High Elder Venna, had made several none too subtle remarks about the need for concrete results. Neria's luminescent skin dimmed slightly, a sign Jasper had learned indicated stress. "They don't understand that forcing this could ruin everything. The genetic compatibility is only part of the equation. The emotional resonance must develop naturally." Jasper reached for her hand, feeling the now familiar spark of energy between them. "Speaking of emotional resonance, you never did explain exactly how that works." A smile played across her iridescent lips. "It's complicated. Our scientists call it quantum emotional entanglement. When 2 Asterians, or in our case, an Asterian and a particularly compatible human, connect, our energy fields synchronize. It's like every cell in your body recognizes the other person," Jasper finished, remembering the sensation from their first touch. "Exactly." Neria moved closer, her violet eyes intense. "That's why this is so unprecedented. No human has ever achieved this level of resonance with one of my people." The garden's artificial sunlight caught the crystalline patterns in her formal robes, creating dancing lights across her silvery skin. Jasper found himself mesmerized by the display, even as his diplomatic training screamed about the complications of their situation. "Your council member Theron seems particularly opposed to our connection," he observed, remembering the cold stares from the conservative Asterian during their last meeting. Neria's expression hardened. "Theron represents an old faction that believes our species should remain pure, even if it means our eventual extinction. They'd rather we fade away with dignity than embrace change and survival." "And what do you believe?" She stood, moving to the viewport that showed the vast expanse of space. "I believe the universe brought our species together for a reason. The genetic compatibility, the emotional resonance, it can't be mere coincidence." Jasper joined her at the viewport, close enough to feel the energy field that seemed to constantly surround her. "Diana thinks we're playing with fire. That mixing personal feelings with diplomatic relations is asking for trouble. Is that what this is to you?" Neria turned to face him, their bodies mere inches apart. "Just diplomatic relations?" The air between them crackled with tension. "You know it's not," he admitted. "But the complications are significant," she finished. "Yet perhaps not as insurmountable as they appear." She reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw with ethereal grace. "My people have a saying, when stars align, only fools ignore their light." The touch of her fingers sent waves of pleasure through his nervous system, a unique feature of Asterian contact that still caught him off guard. "And what exactly are the stars telling us?" Instead of answering, Neria leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The contact was electric, literally. Asterian kisses involved a transfer of bioelectrical energy that made human kisses seem tame in comparison. Jasper felt as though every nerve ending in his body had come alive at once. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Neria's skin was glowing brighter than he'd ever seen. "They're telling us that some things are worth the risk," she whispered. A discreet cough from the garden entrance made them step apart. Captain Diana Foster stood there, looking apologetic but urgent. "Sorry to interrupt, but we've received a priority transmission from the Asterian High Council. They're sending a delegation. Led by High Elder Vena herself." Neria's glow dimmed dramatically. "My mother? She never leaves the homeworld. This is unprecedented. How long do we have?" Jasper asked, already mentally preparing for the diplomatic storm ahead. "They'll be here within the day," Diana replied. "And Commander?" "They're bringing full genetic sampling equipment with them." The implications hung heavy in the air. The council was done waiting for natural progression, they wanted results, and they wanted them now. Neria's hand found Jasper's again, their fingers intertwining automatically. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "remember that what's between us is real. It's not just politics or genetics or duty." Looking into her starlit eyes, Jasper knew she was right. Whatever challenges lay ahead, cultural differences, political pressure, biological complications, what they shared was worth fighting for. The question was, would the rest of their species see it the same way? The arrival of High Elder Vena's ship made the Asterian vessel that had first brought Neria look modest in comparison. Its crystalline surface rippled with patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the stars themselves, a display of power that wasn't lost on anyone watching from the celestial dawn's observation deck. "Your mother certainly knows how to make an entrance," Jasper murmured to Neria, who stood rigid beside him in her most formal attire, a gown that seemed to be made of living starlight. "She's not just my mother right now," Neria replied tensely. "She's the voice of our entire species' future." Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining in what had become an automatic gesture of comfort. "Whatever happens, don't let her intimidate you." The docking procedure was accompanied by a display of lights that danced between the ships, a traditional Asterian greeting that the Celestial Dawn's crew had hastily programmed their external lights to reciprocate. When the airlock finally opened, High Elder Vena emerged like a force of nature. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her silvery skin bearing intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move of their own accord. Her eyes, unlike Neria's violet ones, were pure white and seemed to contain entire galaxies. The delegation behind her moved with practiced precision, creating a formation that looked more ceremonial than practical. "Daughter," Vena's voice resonated through the docking bay, making several human crew members shiver involuntarily. "I see the reports of your attachment were not exaggerated." Neria stepped forward, still holding Jasper's hand. "Mother, welcome aboard the Celestial Dawn. May I present Commander Jasper Reed?" Vena's stellar gaze fixed on Jasper with an intensity that made him feel like he was being scanned at the molecular level, which, given Asterian capabilities, might not have been far from the truth. "So, this is the human who has caused such a stir among our geneticists." "High Elder," Jasper bowed respectfully, using the formal greeting Neria had taught him. "We are honored by your presence." "Are you?" Vena moved closer, her height forcing Jasper to look up. "Are you truly aware of the honor, and responsibility, being bestowed upon you?" Before Jasper could respond, one of the delegation members stepped forward with a device that looked uncomfortably like a medical scanner. "The compatibility tests must be conducted immediately," the scientist announced. "No," Neria's voice cut through the tension like a plasma blade. "By our own laws, any genetic sampling must be preceded by the traditional bonding ceremonies. Or have we abandoned our customs in our desperation?" Vena's expression shifted minutely. Was that approval in her stellar eyes? "You would claim the right of traditional courtship?" "I would," Neria lifted her chin defiantly. "Commander Reed and I have already established a Class 3 resonance. We have the right to pursue this connection properly." A murmur ran through the delegation. Jasper had learned enough about Asterian culture to know that a Class 3 resonance was rare even between two Asterians. Between different species, it should have been impossible. "Very well," Vena's voice carried a note of amusement. "Let us proceed with the first trial of bonding. Now." Neria's hand tightened on Jasper's. "Mother, we haven't had time to prepare. If your resonance is true, preparation is unnecessary." Vena gestured, and two members of her delegation began setting up what looked like a crystalline arch in the middle of the docking bay. "Unless you wish to withdraw your claim." Jasper squeezed Neria's hand. "What exactly does this trial involve?" "The sharing of souls," Neria whispered. "It's usually done after months of preparation. It will lay bare everything we are to each other. Every thought, every feeling, every secret. And if we fail? Then we'll be separated immediately, and all diplomatic relations between our species will be severed." The weight of two civilizations' futures settled on Jasper's shoulders. But looking at Neria, seeing the mix of fear and hope in her violet eyes, he knew there was only one choice. "Then we better not fail." The crystalline arch had begun to hum, emitting a soft blue light that seemed to reach out towards them. Vena took her position before it, her voice taking on a ceremonial tone. "The first trial of bonding requires absolute truth between participants. Your minds will be joined, your souls laid bare. Any attempt to hide or shield your thoughts will result in immediate failure." Neria led Jasper to stand beneath the arch. "Focus on me," she whispered. "Nothing else matters." As they faced each other, the blue light intensified, and Jasper felt a sensation like falling into space. Neria's consciousness met his, and suddenly he was experiencing everything: her childhood among the crystal spires of her homeworld, her years of scientific study, the moment she first discovered the human genetic compatibility, the instant she saw his file and felt the first spark of resonance. In turn, he felt her experiencing his memories, his military service, his transition to diplomacy, his loneliness despite his accomplishments, the electric moment of their first meeting. Their shared emotions created a feedback loop of increasing intensity until it was impossible to tell where one consciousness ended and the other began. Through it all, one truth became blindingly clear: their connection wasn't just biological compatibility or diplomatic convenience. It was something deeper, more fundamental, as if the universe itself had designed their species to find each other. When the light finally faded, Jasper found himself on his knees, still holding Neria's hands. Her skin was glowing with unprecedented brightness, and tears of luminescent liquid traced down her cheeks. Around them, the entire delegation, including High Elder Venna, stood in shocked silence. The resonance. One of the scientists whispered, staring at readings on their scanner. It strengthened to class 2. Impossible, another breathed. Even bonded Asterian pairs rarely achieve such harmony. Venna stepped forward, her expression unreadable. It seems, daughter, that your choice was more prophetic than even you knew. She turned to address the entire gathering. The first trial is complete. The bond is true. Relief flooded through both Jasper and Neria, their newly strengthened connection allowing them to feel each other's emotions with startling clarity. But Venna wasn't finished. However, she continued, this is only the beginning. There are 6 more trials to complete before a formal bonding can be recognized. And given the unprecedented nature of this union, I believe we should proceed with all of them. Immediately. Jasper met Neria's eyes, feeling her determination match his own. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just for themselves, but for the future of both their species. The remaining trials came in quick succession, each more challenging than the last. The second trial of physical harmony had Jasper and Neria moving through ancient Asterian combat forms together, their bodies flowing in perfect synchronization as their enhanced connection guided their movements. The third trial of mental fortitude tested their ability to maintain their bond under extreme psychological pressure. Now, as they prepared for the fourth trial, Jasper could feel Neria's anxiety through their strengthened bond. They stood in a chamber that the Asterians had converted into a sacred space, its walls lined with living crystal that pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats. The trial of futures, Neria explained, her voice soft but carrying an edge of tension. We'll experience possible timelines of our life together. Not all of them will be pleasant. Jasper reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. Whatever we see, we face it together. High Elder Venna approached, her stellar eyes somehow both warm and calculating. You've surprised us, Commander Reed. Few non-Asterians have ever undergone these trials. None have passed them with such impressive results. With respect, High Elder, Jasper replied, I'm not doing this to impress anyone. I'm doing it for Neria. A slight smile curved Venna's lips. And that, perhaps, is why you're succeeding. She gestured to the crystalline apparatus that dominated the center of the room. The trial of futures will show you the weight of your choices. Are you prepared? They stepped into the circle of crystals, which began to hum with increasing intensity. The air around them shimmered, and reality seemed to fracture into multiple overlapping scenes. They saw themselves years in the future, surrounded by children who carried both human and Asterian features, their silver skin glowing with inherited bioluminescence as they played among the stars. They witnessed potential conflicts, human governments questioning their union, conservative Asterian factions plotting to separate them, the challenges of raising hybrid children in a galaxy that wasn't ready for such combinations. They experienced moments of joy, their first successful genetic breakthrough leading to a renaissance for both species, the establishment of new colonies where humans and Asterians lived in harmony, the birth of their first child heralding a new era of interspecies cooperation. But they also saw darker possibilities, war between their peoples, sparked by fear and misunderstanding, the pain of watching each other age at different rates, the burden of being symbols rather than individuals. Through it all, their hands remained clasped, their connection growing stronger with each shared vision. When the images finally faded, they found themselves on their knees, breathing heavily. The future is not set, Venna announced, studying their reactions. What you've seen are possibilities, paths that may or may not come to pass. The question is, knowing what you know now, do you choose to continue? Jasper turned to Neria, seeing the same determination in her violet eyes that he felt in his heart. Every path has its challenges, he said. But the ones we saw without each other were the darkest of all. Agreed, Neria's skin glowed with emotion. Whatever complications we face them together. A murmur ran through the watching delegation. Council member Theron stepped forward, his face tight with disapproval. This is more than just a personal choice. You would risk the stability of both our civilizations for feelings. No, Neria rose gracefully, pulling Jasper up with her. We risk temporary instability for the chance at a greater future for both our peoples. The visions showed us that too. And if you fail? Theron challenged. If this unprecedented union proves disastrous, then we'll have failed trying to build something meaningful, Jasper responded, feeling Neria's approval through their bond. Rather than failing by giving in to fear. High Elder Venna raised her hand for silence. The trial of futures is complete. You've seen what may come and chosen to proceed despite the risks. Her stellar eyes focused on their joined hands. However, the final trials will test more than your commitment to each other. They will test your commitment to the future you claim to seek. What do you mean? Jasper asked, though he could feel Neria's understanding through their bond. The fifth trial requires you to separate for 7 days, Venna explained. No contact, no communication through your bond. You must prove that your choice is made with clear minds, not just heightened emotions. Neria's hand tightened on his. And the sixth? The trial of creation, Venna's voice carried a note of challenge. You must demonstrate that your union can indeed produce the future you envision. Our scientists have prepared the necessary facilities. The implications were clear, they would need to prove that human-Asterian reproduction was possible, not just theoretically but practically. Jasper felt a mix of emotions through their bond, Neria's determination, her slight apprehension, her deep love for him, and underlying it all, her unwavering belief in their shared future. 7 days, he said, meeting her eyes. We can handle that. It will feel longer, she warned. The bond makes separation difficult. Looking at her luminescent skin, her starlit eyes, the way she seemed to glow brighter in his presence, Jasper knew it would be the longest week of his life. But he also knew it would be worth it. When it's over, no more trials. No more tests. Just us, forging our own path. Together, she agreed, her free hand coming up to trace the line of his jaw, sending pleasant shivers of energy through his nervous system. The separation begins at dawn, Venna announced. I suggest you use these last hours wisely. As the delegation filed out, leaving them alone in the crystalline chamber, Jasper pulled Neria close. Any other trials I should know about? She smiled, her skin pulsing with patterns of light that he'd learned to recognize as happiness. Just the 7th, the final bonding. But that's more celebration than trial. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Though it does traditionally last 3 days. Only 3, he teased, feeling her amusement through their connection. Their laughter echoed through the chamber, making the crystals sing in harmony. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever futures awaited them, they would face them all, together. 7 days without Neria felt like an eternity. Jasper threw himself into his duties aboard the Celestial Dawn, but everything seemed dimmer without her presence, as if the very air had lost its sparkle. The absence of their bond left an ache in his mind that no amount of work could fill. Diana found him on the final night, staring out at the stars from the observation deck. You're actually glowing a bit, she remarked. Like her. Jasper looked at his reflection in the viewport, she was right. His skin had taken on a subtle luminescence, barely noticeable unless you knew to look for it. Side effect of the bonding process, he explained. The genetic modifications are already starting. Having second thoughts? Not even for a moment. He turned to his friend. I know it seems crazy. Too fast, too intense, too important to risk on something that feels like a fairy tale. But when I'm with her. The universe makes sense, Diana finished. Yeah, I've seen how you two look at each other. It's disgustingly romantic. Her expression softened. The separation period ends at dawn. Ready for the final trials? Ready to see her again, he admitted. The trials themselves. He shrugged. After everything else, they almost seem secondary. Dawn brought with it the return of Neria, and the moment she entered the ship, Jasper felt their bond snap back into place with an intensity that took his breath away. She appeared in the doorway of the observation deck, her skin glowing brighter than he'd ever seen. No words were necessary. They came together like magnetic poles finally releasing their attraction, their embrace sending waves of shared emotion through their renewed connection. Around them, the ship's lights flickered in response to their energy. I missed you, she whispered against his neck, her touch sending pleasant shivers of bioelectrical energy through his system. I think the whole ship knows exactly how much, he replied, noting the way the nearby control panels were pulsing in rhythm with their combined heartbeats. We're causing interference with the electronics. She laughed, the sound making the lights dance. Wait until the final bonding. They'll have to shut down all non-essential systems. If we pass the 6th trial, he reminded her, though he could feel her confidence through their link. When we pass it, she corrected. The genetic modifications are already taking hold. She traced the subtle glow of his skin. Your body is adapting to match mine. The scientists say it's unprecedented. High Elder Venna chose that moment to make her entrance, accompanied by a smaller delegation than before. The separation period is complete, she announced. Are you prepared for the trial of creation? The testing chamber had been prepared with a combination of human and Asterian medical equipment. The next few hours were a blur of scans, samples, and genetic analysis. Through it all, Jasper and Neria maintained physical contact, their bond helping them endure the clinical nature of the proceedings. Finally, the chief scientist stepped back, her expression showing a mix of awe and excitement. The genetic integration is perfect, she announced. Commander Reed's DNA has partially adapted to match Asterian patterns, while maintaining its human stability. Conception would not only be possible but would likely result in offspring stronger than either species alone. As the vision suggested, Neria said softly, squeezing Jasper's hand. Venna studied the results herself before turning to address them. The trial of creation is past. You have proven that your union can indeed offer hope for both our peoples. Her stellar eyes softened slightly. The final bonding may proceed. The ceremony itself was held in the ship's largest chamber, now transformed by crystalline structures that seemed to grow from the walls themselves. Representatives from both Earth and Asteria gathered to witness the unprecedented union. Jasper wore a formal uniform that had been modified with Asterian crystalline elements, while Neria's gown seemed to be made of pure light. As they stood before High Elder Venna, their existing bond hummed with anticipation. Two paths, two peoples, two destinies, Venna began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Today we witness their joining, not just in ceremony but in truth. The final bonding will complete your transformation, linking you permanently in body, mind, and soul. Are you prepared? Their yes was spoken in perfect unison, their bond making them move and speak as one. The crystalline arch above them began to pulse with energy, responding to their combined presence. Then let all barriers fall, Venna commanded. Let all distances vanish. Let two become one, not in the losing of self but in the finding of something greater. The energy field around them intensified, and Jasper felt the last walls between their minds dissolve. Neria's consciousness merged with his completely, their memories, thoughts, and feelings becoming perfectly shared. The glow of their skin brightened until they seemed to be made of pure light. Through their bond, they experienced everything together, the joy of their union, the hopes for their future, the love that had grown between them against all odds. The chamber's crystals sang in harmony with their emotions, creating a display of light and sound that left the witnesses in awe. When the light finally faded, they remained connected more deeply than ever before. Jasper could feel Neria's heartbeat as if it were his own, could sense her thoughts as clearly as his own mind. The bonding is complete, Vena announced. What the universe has joined, let no force tear asunder. Looking into Neria's violet eyes, now flecked with hints of his own brown, Jasper knew they had chosen correctly. Their union would change both their species, challenge traditions, and face obstacles. But together, they would forge a path forward into a future brighter than either of them could have imagined alone. Ready for whatever comes next, he asked through their bond. Her response flowed back to him on waves of love and determination. Together, we can face anything. Around them, humans and Asterians mingled, already beginning to bridge the gaps between their cultures. Their union was more than just a marriage, it was a symbol of hope, a promise of evolution, and a testament to the power of love to transcend even the boundaries of species. As the celebration continued around them, Jasper and Neria stood in their private bubble of shared consciousness, their joined hands glowing with the light of possibilities yet to come. They had passed every trial, overcome every obstacle, and emerged stronger. Now, they would write their own story among the stars. The future they had glimpsed in their visions, of unity, of growth, of a new species born from the best of both worlds, was no longer just a possibility. It was a promise, sealed with a bond that stretched across space itself, glowing with the light of 1,000 stars.